Anyway, so I've got these 4 slides. Now, they drill in a little bit, but I can actually do the whole CMO pitch off this one slide. And I'll drill in just to sort of show you how it goes. But basically, I talk about where's the industry, where is marketing going, what does customer experience management mean, and I put it in a Microsoft context, but you're part of that context. So you'll see your logo. And then what is the architecture around that? And so when I talk in platform terms, I am talking in Microsoft platform terms. And I have heard over the course of today, Sprinklr being talked about as a platform. And it's an interesting word, platform. You have to be a little bit careful with it because there's so many platforms out there. But I feel fairly comfortable at Microsoft that we can talk in a platformy way and sort of fit things in. So you'll see me slotting you in more as an application as opposed to a platform, but I think you'll see the reasoning behind that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the industry insight. So this has come up a bunch of different times, but this is the Chief MarTech slide that comes out every March. This was the one from last March. The new one's coming, obviously. I'm presenting at their conference in March. Last year, there were 3,874 marketing point solutions. Somewhere on there is your logo, along with 308,073 others. Okay? And even by, so by category, there's tremendous numbers of, applications, and this is what you're competing against when you're selling. This is how CMOs feel. I are confused. Oh, by the way, I'll leave this deck if you want the deck, or you're more than welcome to take pictures, but maybe take pictures of me, okay? But I will. just tell me when I need to kind of. But I will leave the deck behind.
Just one picture. Just one picture.
Oh, great. Okay, super. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. A very good friend of mine owns the Chippendales in Vegas. At the end of the show, they do the exact same thing. So now I feel like a Chippendale. It's awesome. Thank you. I don't have cuffs, but Anyway, so but otherwise everything else is the same. So I will leave the deck. You're more than welcome to use all these slides. Okay, so there's nothing in here that's secret or like super, so you can use these in your decks if you want. But this is the state of where CMOs are. And the interesting thing about that, and the reason why that's sort of an interesting challenge, is that CMOs are making more and more decisions all the time. And they are expected now to drive growth and to drive revenue. The CMO Council, Deloitte, did a survey in 2006, and they asked CMOs, hey, what is your job? And CMOs said it's branding, it's kind of the soft terms around engagement, it's stuff that was kind of like image, recall, all that kind of stuff. Today, a third of the CMOs say their number 1 priority is driving revenue, and another third say it's their number 2 priority after brand, which is an incredible change. So now you've got CMOs effectively in the same hot seat that sellers have been in for a long time. And a lot of sellers are thinking, frick, about time, right? The marketers sitting there with their crayons, goofing around. What the hell they've been doing the whole time? Now they're carrying a quota as well. I love it, okay? But the CMOs are worried because they're carrying a quota, they're carrying this revenue commitment, and it's a very confusing sort of landscape. This is a really interesting slide, which is, you'll see that CMOs are not the only decision maker, but this is goes down the stack. So think email marketing at the bottom there, all the way to personalization and marketing automation at the top. And you can see where the CMO is the primary decision maker. And social and ad tech is in the sort of majority, 67, 75% level. So that's a good spot for you from a selling standpoint. But you can also see they're never 100% because the buying committee has emerged. And as we talk about digital transformation, and everyone's been talking about that, it's the sort of the thing we talk about these days. But the core thing in digital transformation for me is that people are thinking of IT now as a way of creating strategic advantage for their company versus just being a cost center that they had to pay out. Right, so, and we were part of the original cost center, which was well, I guess I gotta pay for the damn desktops, so pay as little as I can. I'll upgrade as infrequently as possible. And God, I hate those bastards at Microsoft. They just keep ramming it down my throat. Well, that was a great business model for a really long time. But that was a cost-based business model, kind of cost of, sort of playing in the field. Now it's like, how do I use IT to get ahead of my competitor? And how is my competitor using IT to get ahead of me? I don't want to get Ubered. Right? I don't want to get Airbnb'd. It's very interesting. The Waldorf Astoria is about to close. It closes the end of February. It's my favorite hotel. I go there all the time. They have this one drink called an 1860 Manhattan, which I hear is really good. Actually, yeah, there's this one drink there called the 1860 Manhattan. It's basically the original 1860. I didn't put enough story into it. There's basically the original recipe of the original Manhattan from 1860, invented in the Waldorf Bar. Very cool drink. And I hear it's fabulous, especially if I have 3 or 4. That's better. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll have to remember that. Okay. So why are they closing the Waldorf? They're closing it and they're converting about 3/4 of it into condos because they don't need that many rooms anymore. Airbnb has unlocked all the spare rooms that everyone had in their houses and in their apartments and all these other places. So the overall capacity of the hotel industry is actually expanded with Airbnb, and traditional hotels have got empty rooms now, and they're starting to convert down to condos. So it's a fascinating sort of time. So as IT becomes strategic to the enterprise, what happens is it's no longer the CIO who's making all those decisions. Now it's a buying committee. The buying committee tends to be the C-suite. And that buying committee they all want to be involved because they all want to be part of how they set strategic direction for the company. So that's the big change that's really going on, and that's what we're selling into. Okay, now I'm going to go a little bit more quickly through this slide because it's, I think, somewhat obvious. But when we talk to customers, before I talk to a customer, I need to understand where they are in the marketing spectrum. So there's the early stage, and this is sort of an email-centric way of thinking. Still a lot of companies in this space. Still a lot of companies in this space. The more mature space would be socially centered. And I would say that we fit into this space at Microsoft. And so we're probably just a bit to the right of that mature bubble. Real-time personalization is something in place now. Account-based marketing with a company called Follows is something we use a lot. Advertising automation, we've been pushing a lot. And where almost nobody is, which is in the future state, is marketing AI, right? Which is really basically how do you use AI to make better marketing decisions. Now, the interesting thing about the marketing industry is that if you look at the global GDP, about 5% of global GDP is in IT. And so IT companies have been like, how do we get out of that 5% trap and get to a higher level of global GDP? About 20% of global GDP is in labor. Okay. In marketing, what percent of the total marketing spend, which is about $2.5 trillion globally, $2.5 trillion globally, what percent of the marketing spend do you think is in labor? 20% globally on the GDP. That's the standard, okay? So you think it's higher or lower, and what do you think it is? Lower. You think that we spend less on labor and marketing? Okay, that's right. Okay, good. 40%? 50%. 50% of $2.5 trillion in marketing is labor. Human beings. So the opportunity is to take AI, machine learning, and technology, and take all the work that those people are doing, which is making decisions and planning, and automate it. It is a massive, effectively $1.25 trillion opportunity for the IT industry and marketing. It is potentially a bigger opportunity than any other space in the world right now. And people are just beginning to wake up to it. Bill Gates reviews our marketing go-to-market strategy every week and looks at technology, especially the stuff coming out of Dynamics, every week. It's his core focus area now. A lot of people don't realize that Bill came back to the company when Satya came back when Satya became CEO. Bill had kind of been gone during the Ballmer years. And that's part of why things feel different too, because you got kind of founder energy back in. So this is a really big opportunity, and it's an awesome place to be a hot tub in. All right. Now, one thing, people talk about marketing automation. This is just a standard journey slide. If you've ever looked at Marketo or anything like that, you've all seen these. The challenge with this, and this was actually like super, super, super sexy and far ahead like 3 years ago, but if you've ever tried, how many people actually built a marketing automation journey? Okay, so I would recommend, as sellers in the room, that you all do this. Just get a marketer to get you to build one. What it is branching logic. And so you branch, so if they answer the email, I do this. If they don't look at the email, I do this. And then they don't look at the email a second time, then I'll do this other thing, and then I do this other thing if they do look at the email a second time. And so it branches. What happens is very, very quickly you realize that the human mind and the sort of theoretical sheet of paper you're on, even if it's infinitely scrolling, can't actually encompass the thousands of different iterations that occur in just general random human behavior. And so this is a very rigid, complex, and artificial system, and requires still a ton of human judgment. And so what we're building, and a lot of my Microsoft research brethren, folks that I sort of started in the company with, are still doing this. What we're building is we're building a marketing AI system. And the marketing AI system takes signals, and there's two kinds of signals, right? It takes the signals that are marketing signals, and this is the other weakness of a current marketing approach, is we tend to look at just the things we did, right? I sent an email, did you respond to it? I placed an ad, did you read it? Right? I did an event, did you come? That's kind of what we tend to do. But there's a lot of other things that go into why you may or may not want to buy a product. Like, for example, if I walk into CMO's office and they've got like a halo statue on their credenza, it's going to be a very different conversation than if I walk into their office and there's like an autographed picture of Steve Jobs on the wall. Very different conversation, because their orientation towards Microsoft is different in those two different cases. It's kind of like when I came in this morning to do this presentation, I gave them my deck and I said, it needs to run on Windows 10 because it uses this thing called Zoom. And they're like, dude, we're all Macs. And I will say, Shane at the back was freaking awesome. He was like, you know what? No problem. Give me your machine. So this is actually my PC we're running this thing on right now. But I do know something about if I was going to try to sell a PC to that team at the back, it'd be a very different experience because they're all using Macs. So all these other things really come into play. So what else is someone doing? So really understanding the whole person and making a purchase intent or a next logical action recommendation, that's where we're headed. So I'll just kind of leave that there for a minute because I am going to come back to it in a few more minutes as we talk about the architecture of the platform. All right, so now let's go to, and this thing is called the interaction cloud right now. All right, so now let's go into the marketecture. So I'm going to have marketecture on the right, bottom right, and architecture on the bottom left. So the marketecture really is the systems of nurture that you have to put together as a CMO. So this is the system I run today. So my job is I'm the marketing, I'm the general manager and CMO for the US commercial business, which is a $35 billion business, and it's effectively everything except for Xbox. Think about it that way. So the coolest thing we make is the one thing I don't get to sell. But I'm an Azure seller. And Xbox runs on Azure, so damn. Anyway, so this is actually, the thing about this slide, which is very interesting to me, it's taken me about, I think, 3 years to get this slide right. And Raji's and Carlos have both contributed to it. There's one addition I just put on last week. But it's incredible to get a simple view of what I do for a living has been more difficult than I would have expected, which is an interesting insight into just sort of the challenges of being a CMO. And so starting with advertising automation, we take people who are anonymous, and then we bring them into marketing automation. Now they're known. We nurture those folks, turn them into someone who can be a sales prospect. They go into CRM and sales automation. Ideally, we may want to transact with them through a commerce service. And then they become a customer, and we want to take care of them. And all the stuff that Carlos was talking about, which is care is the new marketing, dead on, right? So these systems of nurture are connected, which is why it's like a circle. Underlying all of that, you've got to have BI and reporting. And this is actually one of the things that's the biggest problem in the current point solution soup, is that every single tool has its own BI and reporting sort of view, including yours. And so that's something we're trying to solve, and I'll show you what we're doing. And then project management, right? So in our social command center, which I'll show you some stuff from, we're still using Opal. Yeah, still using Opal. Hopefully not for long. but we still, and then I've got like 12 other project management tools, including 2 that I make. I got Office Planner and this thing called Project. It's been around for a while, right? So this is the system that I run. And so what my job is, in my opinion, is to optimize each of those systems in the middle. So the 5 systems of nurture need to be optimized. And I'm using project management and reporting to understand how good a job I'm doing at optimization. Right? With the reporting telling me my progress, and the planning helping me make progress. That's my job. Right? These are all clouds. So these are all systems of clouds. And the only challenge in the system is there's no one product that sits across all of it. And Sprinklr, for as wonderful as Sprinklr is, and like I said, I'm a huge fan, you can't do marketing automation, you can't do sales automation, like you can't sit across the whole stack. So I'm stitching together things. So in a way, I want to stitch together the minimum number of applications to deliver the maximum value, because the more I have, the harder it'll be to optimize, because I'm optimizing across too many variables. Right? So this is kind of when I pitch a CMO, this is how I talk. Because we don't really have a marketing cloud product, and we don't really have a commerce cloud product. We have a very sophisticated commerce system, but it's all in-house. So it's what we make inside. But in Marketing Cloud, we use Marketo today inside our company. But on the Advertising Cloud, between Sprinklr and Adobe, we got it covered. All the anonymous covered that way. And on the right-hand side, Sprinklr and Dynamics manage customer care. In the middle, LinkedIn and Dynamics are becoming very powerful. And I'll be soon adding Sprinklr there. You are working on an integration into Dynamics that'll give Dynamics social capabilities, and that'll make Sprinklr basically in 3 of those 5 nurture buckets. So Carlos, the sooner we get that integration done. Okay. And then obviously I use Power BI and SQL for my reporting, and then Project and Office for my planning. So that's my sort of brand map. So what does that sort of look like from an architecture standpoint? So the infrastructure is all run on Azure. We've got first-party and third-party data sources. You know, one thing about LinkedIn, which this is maybe not super duper obvious, but you know, when you buy a company, you pay a certain amount of money more than the company's technically worth, and so you pay a premium, right? And so the way it's worked is that software companies are always worth more than service companies. So because you software, you can amplify the impact of individuals more. We paid more than a software premium for LinkedIn. It's a $26 billion acquisition. And the reason we did that is because it's a data play. So we bought the data. So data companies are now the next. So it's services, software, data, and there's some early rumblings about outcomes. And I'll talk a little bit about marketing as a service in a minute, but buying outcome-based companies may be the next sort of future. So why is the data in LinkedIn interesting to Microsoft? Anyone care to jump on the stage with me and do a 5-minute treatise? No, really? Okay, I'll start. So has anyone heard of Office 365? Okay, so what's Office 365? Cloud Office, okay, it's a hot tub. Geez, I mean, nobody listening here? It's a hot tub, okay? It's Office on Azure, right? Okay, cloud-based service. Okay, so how many people here know what Delve is? Have you ever used Delve? Wow. Man, you got to bring me back for like a demo session, Carlos. So I'll just show people how I work. So Delve is effectively a tool inside Office 365. It allows you to see your interactions with other people in your organization, and to find other people in your organization, and to find documents. So one quick example. I saw a presentation from someone named Erwin Visser, runs our enterprise marketing group at Worldwide. I love the presentation, super awesome. The old days, what I would do is I would send Erwin an email, say, Erwin, I loved your presentation, may I have the deck? Erwin wouldn't respond, then I sent him another email a couple weeks later, and he wouldn't respond to that. Then I'd see him in the hallway a month later. I said, hey, did you see my email? He goes, oh my God, I completely forgot. Can I get to the deck? And 2 months later, I forgot all about it, and we moved on, and we don't have the deck. That's typically how it worked. Occasionally you get it, but it's super, super unusual. I saw Erwin doing the presentation. I thought, this is a really great deck. He's got some cool stuff here on digital transformation. I went into Delve, typed in Erwin's name, and because he was presenting that today, and because I was in the presentation, Office 365 links the fact that I'm sitting in a meeting that he's in and brings up the thing that he's presenting in that meeting. I downloaded it. I had it before the presentation was over. It's an amazing sort of collaboration tool. And so what Office 365 does is actually it allows you to see the interaction graph of everybody inside a company, inside the company. Right. And so, no, it just comes with it. Yeah. And so, now that's locked to your company, right? So it's not like you can see everyone else's company. It's your company that you see the interactions in. Although, you can open it. So you can open it to another company if you wanted to. So, for example, Procter & Gamble, I worked at P&G, big customer of ours was Walmart, right? We actually connected our inventory systems to Walmart. So when they would need diapers, we would just ship, like there was like an automatic ordering system on Pampers. Right? I could imagine that you might want to connect those systems to see your interactions between those two companies that are very tightly connected. So what's LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the social graph of all business. And if you think about Microsoft, 97% of businesses have some piece of our software, and Office is relatively popular. So we've got the Office graph, and we've got the social graph. What are we able to do with that? Imagine Sprinklr sitting in between all that and mediating the social interactions in the business community. That's a very exciting time. So just thought I'd leave that out there. I can see you're just bubbling. It's this palpable sense of, anyway, so let me keep going. So then Microsoft applications, I've talked about what we build. You're an ISV application, Follows and Adobe are similar. If you don't know what Follows is, by the way, check them out. They allow you to send a pre-formatted web page to a customer with a variety of pieces of content. And when the customer interacts with that content, you get to see what they interacted with and how long they interacted with it. It's an amazing tool, super cool point solution, and they're on Azure now. And then something called Marketing as a Service. Really interesting. 2016, IBM was voted the world's #1 digital creative agency. Snapping up agencies like crazy. IBM, world's #1 digital creative agency. And where we're going is that this complexity, the IR confused slide, a lot of CMOs are beginning to say, you know what? Stop. I don't want to do this. I didn't actually train to be a technologist. I'm not even sure I particularly like being a technologist. If I hear the word API one more time, first of all, not a word, but if I hear it one more time, okay, I'm going to lose it. Because everyone says, you know, how am I going to connect this to my, oh, I've got an API. An API, no problem. How hard could it be? Okay? Never works. Okay? And so all these CMOs are saying, you know what? Screw it. I like to sell at breadth. I'm a breadth seller. That's what CMOs are. I've got strategy. I've got creative. What I need is I need marketing qualified leads. Or what I need is I need social engagements. Or what I need is I need reach. Like I've got things that I need. Let me contract with you, IBM or Adobe. They're starting this. There's a really interesting company called Red Ventures, North Carolina, now in Seattle. And you give me the outputs, and I'll pay you for the outputs. And you know what? I don't care how it happens. I don't want to hear about people crying. You know, I don't, you put it together with baling wire and matte scotch tape. Like, I don't, just give me the thing that's the output, and I will just run the system. Very interesting evolution. When a market becomes too complicated, people move to a service sort of mentality. And then sort of in between all these, and what mediates them all, we believe will be the AI layer. Because the AI layer will help us understand what to do next. It'll help sellers know what their next call should be. And it'll help people know what their next purchase should be. And I think a lot of it will probably be mediated by chatbots. We'll actually move away from sort of people going to pages, because people just like to have conversations. And increasingly, as computing power increases, we're able to interact with machines in a more natural and more human way. So that'll just continue. So that's my architecture slide. And so when I talk to a customer, I talk about this. And I talk about this as being sort of a roadmap. And so I'll be down at Disney for the next month. going repeated presentations, going through their organization, talking about this as a roadmap. Now the thing is that, one thing Raji talks about a lot, which I love, is that everyone's got a thing already, right? They've already got like some email, they've got a little bit of this, so everyone's got to try to fit this stuff together. So the idea of this sort of architectural structure is it's flexible enough to incorporate what you already have, but forward-looking enough that you're able to build a marketing system of the future. And I would observe that a lot of CMOs have kind of accidentally built a system. You know, they kind of had a thing and they thought, oh, Marketo's going to solve all my problems. And then, it's not quite right, I need to do this other thing. And next thing you know, you've got the average CMO, 24-point applications. Average is 24. The Cisco one looked insane, by the way. We're not even that bad. That's an ugly slide, but that's just a prescription for disaster. And so, but a lot of people back themselves into that. They didn't start one day saying, you know what, I think it'd be a really terrific idea, is I'm going to go buy 24 completely different point solutions from totally different vendors that apparently have APIs, and I'm going to see if they all work together. Like nobody woke up at breakfast and said that, right? And so they've all backed themselves into this corner, so now they're like, well, what's the next stage? And so that's where we think there's an opportunity for us as a company and in partnership with you to say, here is what the next stage could look like. And the good news is this is what we're doing. So this is how we're building it. This is how we're structuring it. And increasingly, more and more of our stuff that was outside of Sprinklr is moving into Sprinklr. And we're consolidating paid more into Sprinklr, listening more into Sprinklr, planning more into Sprinklr. So a lot of those functions will sort of consolidate, and that just makes a ton of sense. So, kind of wrapping up here. Got a couple minutes, could take a couple questions. But I think we're at the beginning of something really cool, really great discovery. We're still in our infancy. This is the earliest days. We'll all look back in 20 years and say, God, I was there when? And you know, it's going to be an awesome, awesome adventure. And I'm really, really honored to be on that adventure with all of you. Thank you very much.